skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president.
The young poet stealing the limelight from America's new president. Where there's a will, there's a way for one theatre troupe here in France and an artistic refuge for all here in Paris. That's all coming up in today's show. First, poetry versus politics, or perhaps it's a happy marriage of the two. Joe Biden's inauguration as America's 46th president might have been a scaled-down affair, but one star shone brighter than most at the ceremony, Amanda Gorman. The 22-year-old poet read from her own work to mark the event, an ode to light, hope, and embracing imperfect change. Charlie James takes a look at this impressive performance.
Time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one.
Making history at just 22 years old, Amanda Gorman became the youngest ever inaugural poet when she performed at Wednesday's ceremony. Her original composition, The Hill We Climb, referenced works from the Bible to the musical Hamilton. Gorman completed it in the hours following the U.S. Capitol riots and said she wanted to send a message of hope and unity.
The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is.
The nation captivated, with the reading launching the young poet to fame. In the hours after her performance, Gorman gained millions of social media followers, and her books became bestsellers. Praise poured in from politicians and celebrities, including Oprah Winfrey, who tweeted, "The late poet Maya Angelou is cheering." In fact, Oprah gifted Gorman a ring for the occasion, depicting a caged bird in honor of Angelou.
We're brave enough to see it.
In her poem, Gorman recalled she dreamed of being president herself as a little girl. Now fans, including Hillary Clinton, are saying they can't wait to vote for her.
Here in France, there is as yet no confirmed date for the reopening of cultural venues amid the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. Many working in the performing arts are getting increasingly concerned about the sector's future. One theatre group is pulling out all the stops to stay on stage, come what may. Selina Sykes and our colleagues at France 3 tell us more.
This theatre in Toulon in the south of France has been closed for the last 2.5 months. Actors have been rehearsing nevertheless. This play was supposed to open in November, just as France went into its second lockdown. The cast has been lucky enough to perform in front of a small audience of those who work in the industry.
We're very happy to have people watching. It was a first, really.
Actor and theatre director Charles Berling came up with the idea as a way of getting around COVID restrictions and allowing projects to go ahead.
Artists have to live, create, work. We have to be positive, which means reinforcing our links with schools and businesses. Theatre is the soul of a town.
The theatre group is getting creative in coming up with potential venues. They'll be performing next in this local library.
We're improvising, but that also makes it spontaneous and natural. It also shows that culture is adapting to the crisis.
Actors will also be taking the stage at this secondary school.
It's a very beautiful room with good acoustics. I started doing theatre in this very room.
In the current circumstances, their collaboration is more important than ever.
Actors clearly need to perform in front of an audience. Charles is also organizing a masterclass for students, and we thank him for that. It's fantastic to have such an opportunity at a school.
The troupe will also be venturing outdoors at this amphitheatre, which requires some changes in their preparation.
We decided to adapt the show, to create a version with fewer technical elements so we can perform in different venues. So despite everything, we can continue to work.
Performing wherever possible is the best option for now, until the curtain is finally allowed to go up again in theatres.
Staying in France, Parisians now have at least one COVID-friendly art opportunity thanks to a sculpture park in the heart of the city. The Rodin Museum has opened up its gardens to visitors while the interior spaces remain closed. It's a chance to see some of the sculptor's legendary bronzes in a bucolic setting. And going on these reactions, people are thrilled about this opportunity to reconnect with culture in spite of the health crisis.
It's been a tough confinement. We chose to live in Paris. We're American. We chose to live in Paris because we love the museums. So it's really nice to be able to get out and see some art.
It really feels good to go out and be able to see monuments, Rodin sculptures, and to show the kids that culture still exists.
The return of culture is extremely important. Even if I'm not a total fan of Rodin, seeing classical essential pieces of art from this period is very important. We reconnect with our culture.
Next to a project that's made its way from Southeast Asia to Paris, finding a safe haven at the Cité de Refuge. This Le Corbusier-designed shelter is now home to an interactive project called Human Soul. Created by artists Anne-Laure Maison and Michel Cam, it recounts the stories of those who are often invisible members of society, using collage portraits and installations made by staff, residents and volunteers. France 24's Mandy Heshmati and Eloise Mélan went to meet them.
Depictions of dozens of atypical life stories adorn the outer and inner walls of the Cité de Refuge shelter, managed by the Salvation Army. At the center of this collage, a flame and a lung, an illustration of one of Alexander's distressing childhood memories.
I used to compete in fire-breathing competitions. I inhaled a flame and that's how I lost my lung. One night I was playing dominoes and met Anne-Laure and Michel. That's how I had my portrait done at the Cité de Refuge.
The project was born in the Philippines. It was there that artists Anne-Laure Maison and Michel Cam met Nelson, a fisherman living in a stilt house. His story would inspire their first portrait of a series on the invisible and forgotten. Now stuck in Paris because of the coronavirus pandemic, the two artists have modified the initiative, drawing inspiration from the often difficult journeys of the residents of this shelter.
When we got here, we thought to ourselves, there are also a lot of outsiders in Paris, and many of them are right here at the Cité du Refuge.
Their project, dubbed Human Soul, allowed the residents here to open up and finally tell their stories, long shrouded in silence. For her portrait, Aguiratu included a subtle reference to her home country.
I'm originally from Burkina Faso, as you can see. The country's flag is red, yellow and green. When there are activities like this with artists, it's an opportunity for us to get together, to get to know each other and talk. I think it's a great project.
And one, Anne-Laure and Michel, hope to expand throughout their more than year-long immersion at the Cité de Refuge shelter, using collages, performances, and installations to illustrate their conception of the human soul.
Now, Nollywood might be the world's third largest cinematic enterprise, but there's still room for a first in Nigeria's film industry. Lady Bucket and the Motley Mopsters is the country's first feature-length animation. Its producers say the aim is to promote indigenous storytelling and diversify production in the West African nation. Nicolas Germain tells us more.
These Nigerians have come to the cinema to see the country's first feature-length animation film. It's called Lady Bucket and the Motley Mopsters. It's the story of a young girl who travels through time. The film's producers face many financial constraints. They first thought they would have to make it abroad, but in the end, everything was done in Nigeria.
We tend to be risk averse, but I believe that this production is a source of inspiration to a lot of Nigerians. They're learning that we can actually do this. And I think that there will be a lot of experimentation, in animation.
Many actors from Nollywood, Africa's largest film industry, voice the characters.
To our sustenance, the sustenance of our culture, of who we are as Africans. Bringing something like this to light has given us the opportunity to get our children to hear our stories and carry it on, preserve culture.
The film had a cast and crew of 30 people and a budget of over $1 million. Its producers hope to release a sequel in the coming months.
And finally, he was known as a force of nature, and his daredevil stunts certainly made him a force to be reckoned with. Rémi Julien has died at the age of 90 after contracting COVID-19. The stuntman and motocross champion was best known for his star turns in over 400 movies, with breakout roles in Le Grand Vadrouille and The Italian Job in the 1960s. He went on to provide some memorable action scenes in 6 of the James Bond films and in Luc Besson's Taxi, as well as coordinating and assisting on many a high-stakes film shoot. We'll leave you with some of his most impressive twists and turns. Otherwise, do remember to check out our website for more arts and culture, and you can keep up with us on social media too. There's more news coming up on France 24 just after this.
If you want to really understand what's going on in the world, you need to follow the money.
In People and Profit, we tackle the biggest stories in the global economy and break down why they matter to you.
From mega mergers to market crashes and those new business ideas that just could change the world.
In this economy, it's the show you can't afford to miss.
Join us every week for your essential business briefing.
People and Profit on France 24 and France24.com.
Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith.
Reporting from across West Africa.
All the latest in politics, economics and the arts in Africa on France 24. Our journalists are in every region, every country, to report on the emergence of a continent of unparalleled riches, bringing you Africa's stories on France 24.
Thanks for joining us. Peace again.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.